You want to live a life on fire and on mission. You want to be filled with such conviction and drive that you stop caring about what anyone thinks. You want to face each day alive, authentic, and fully present in every moment. With your wife, with your kids, on the street, at work. You want to bring yourself to the table and to stop bringing the watered-down, nice, what everyone wants version of you. You want that self to be a man who is burning in passion for Jesus, unafraid to bring his kingdom to anyone in your path, no matter what it costs you. You want to love the one in front of you without fear, without needing love back, and without reserve. You want to husband well. You want to father well. You want to shepherd your life well. You want to be a safe pillar for anybody around you. You want to experience God for real, to not just believe, but to know that he's got you and that he'll show up on your behalf, that he'll show up through you. You want to get to the end of your race and say, yep, I gave it everything. Jesus, you know I'm all in. And you want to know just how to get there. Welcome to Man, Warrior, King. I'm your host, Matt Hallock. Congratulations. You're among the violent, taking the kingdom by force. You're among the chosen, answering the call to rise above yourself. You're in the forge, being stripped down and strengthened, and you will rise stronger, solid, unshakable. You are a man. You're a warrior. You are a king. I want to take a quick moment before we jump into the podcast episode for today to announce to you what I'm super excited about, which is the opening of the Ranks of Adullam. If you're not familiar with what it is, it's going to be a 12-week group transformation initiative where we will together, you and me together, we will be going after the life change transformation that so many men have already been encouraged by, built up by, whatever you want to call it, through the DNA of a man. We are going to take the content of the DNA of a man and we are going to go deeper, farther, and wider with it. We are going to expand our borders as we develop kingdom manhood within us. This is going to be the most powerful 12 weeks of many men's lives. And I want it to be the most powerful 12 weeks of your life. I want it to be crucial in your transformation. I want it to be crucial in you rebuilding your marriage. I want it to be crucial in you finding your kingdom mission on the earth so that you can stop living small, stop living stuck, stop living apologetic. Over these 12 weeks, we're going to be having live meetings together, and you're going to be getting video recording trainings from me, and you're going to have fellowship and interaction with other men on the same path as you. This could really be a turning point in your life, and I want you to be a part of it. Until November 4th, we have early bird registration pricing. After that, the price is going to go up by $300. So this is really incredible value for the low price that you can get it up until November 4th. All right. If you want to look at more info about it and read up all about it, you can head to manwarriorking.com/Adullam. That's ADULLAM. And I'm also going to put the link in the show notes here. All right. So join me, join the other brothers, and we will see you soon. Here's the podcast episode for today. This stuff that we're looking at was really like it. I've never seen this before. And it was like really eye-opening to me, really kind of surprising to me what I was seeing as I've just been going through, the art of scripture that I have been lately. And so I think, if for guys in the group, for guys who've bought the book, my story obviously resonates with you guys. And this whole idea of being like a nice guy can really be a big deal. It can be a big problem for some of us where we go through life feeling like we're doing all the right things, feeling like we are doing our best to follow the rules, doing our best to keep people happy, and it just doesn't pan out, and we end up getting crushed in certain ways. We end up getting burnt out. We end up feeling like it's all for nothing. And what gives? What's going on? Why isn't life working this way? And I've discovered in the last several years that being a nice guy, it doesn't work. It's not actually good. I want to talk about this nice guy thing. All right. So this is one of the most obvious ways this can play out is in marriage, but it really this expands far beyond the marriage realm, where we approach life from a perspective of, I want people to like me. I'm afraid of being rejected. I'm afraid of conflict. I'm afraid of breaking the rules. I really want to follow all the rules, do all the right things, because I don't want anybody to have a reason to oppose me. I don't want anybody to have a reason to see any weakness in me. I don't want anybody to have a reason to say that I've done or said anything wrong. So we tend to go through life timid. And for me, how this has played out in my history, one of the most obvious ways that comes to mind is when I was younger, when I was a student in high school. And I went to a brand new school for high school, as many people do. But at my school, it was a Christian school, and they actually also had a middle school that fed into it. So there were a lot of kids at this school that already had known each other. There were a lot of social groups already put together. And so I was coming from a different school at freshman year. And in that state, I would not even just like speak up and introduce myself to people. I wouldn't be, again, on the offense and go after getting to know people. I wouldn't venture to start a conversation. I would wait for somebody to start one with me. And I might walk into a room, and instead of looking around and asking God, who needs me in this situation? Who needs a touch from you in this situation? Let me go be a giver of value. I'd walk into a room afraid of what people were going to think of me, because I wasn't with another person. So I was exposed and alone. I'd walk into a room and look around and think, where's the safest group for me to be with? Where's the group that already has people in it that have like said stuff to me before, that I have a class with or something like that? So I was always worried about what people were going to be thinking of me. And, over time, I started to feel more comfortable with different people because conversation just happens, interactions happen in classes and things like that. But it was always those opportunities happening to me, never me just taking initiative, being bold and confident and reaching out on my own. And that kind of existence lasted for the full 2 years, freshman and sophomore year. And what really changed it was the fact that I decided to run for student government. All right. My sophomore year, at the end of that year, we held elections for the following school year. So at the end of my sophomore year, I decided to run for ASB vice president. And that involved me giving a speech. And giving that speech was the first time that Psalm 91 came alive to me. If you don't know Psalm 91, it's powerful. It's probably my favorite psalm. But it really talks all about how no matter what's going on around us, God is with us. He's covering us. He's our defender. We might see people drop like flies around us, but it's not going to touch us. All those things. And I like found it before this speech, and I was reading it over and over and over again the weeks leading up to it, because I was so scared, because what were people going to think of me? I ended up giving the speech,
it was a good speech. I feel like I did a really good job of it. If I remember right, I'm not just like saying that. I think that's how it went. And and I ended up not winning the election. But what happened was now I had gotten up in front of all these people, and they all saw me, and I started getting people like approaching me and just saying, "Man, good job!" And it just like it was a mass version of what I had been already waiting for on a one-on-one scale. I was waiting for people to come to me. Now, yes, I had put myself out there. I gave a speech, but still, underneath that, I was still the nice guy, timid, who was now thankful that a bunch of people were coming to me, showing me that they liked me, and then I could open up a bit more. And then I was not too afraid to speak things because I already knew that they liked me. And I had this way of life in all areas. And I never knew there was anything wrong with it. I never knew that was not normal. And yet at the same time, I would look at certain people, and in high school still, I would look at certain friends of mine and think, man, they're super confident. And I had a ton. I by the junior senior year, I had a ton of friends. I was one of the most popular people in the school, but underneath the popularity, I was still like feeding on the popularity rather than just being who I was and letting myself become popular or not. That doesn't matter. I'm still going to be who I am. I'm still going to stay fixed on who God has called me to be no matter what. And so I lived to an extent wishy-washy, at least on the inside. And yeah, I massively carried that into my marriage where I became afraid to be who I was. I became afraid to speak things out. I became afraid to speak my mind because I always wanted to make sure my wife was happy with me. And the problem with this is that when we live this way, it's very sneaky because it involves this low view of ourselves where I'm not worth love. I'm not worth being liked for who I am. So I have to approach a social situation and mimic what's going on around me. I have to approach a social situation and and package myself in a way that all people are going to like and accept. And it feels humble because we're supposed to be humble because, we're sinners, right? And so it wasn't until I started realizing that this is actually a problem, that 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 this is actually not living according to how God made me to be, when my marriage started to turn around. And you guys, God snuck into the word a secret example of what being a nice guy does. I never knew it was there. And then I started seeing all of these little breadcrumbs as I've been going through First Samuel. And I mean, like, what the heck? Because I think of King Saul, and I think of him as a murderer or a would-be murderer who's trying to kill God's anointed David. I think of him as an evil guy who, was like selfish and arrogant and didn't want to share, popularity with David or whatever. That's how I've always thought of him. But this time around, I'm like, that's not the case. It became the case eventually, but that's not how he's always been. So I want to use him to show you what this being nice looks like and what it does to us, because we cannot do this. And it's a time for us Christian men to not be so afraid with offending people. We have to not be so afraid that we're going to step on toes. We have to decide what God is saying, and we have to decide what we're going to do about it and take the fallout. Because if we try to always avoid it, then we're going to reap a massive fallout that will not be good. So in First Samuel, I'm going to pull it up on the screen too, but I have it visualized on the place of the page in my Bible. So I'm just in First Samuel chapter 9. All right, First Samuel chapter 9. So I'm going to share it on the Zoom call here, so the people who don't have Bibles in front of them can see it as well. Give me one moment. Let's see. Had it up, but I accidentally closed it. Okay, got it up, and share that with you, fellas. Okay, so First Samuel chapter 9, and Samuel's dad, Kish, he loses some donkeys. All right, maybe they went wandering off. I don't know. It just says here in verse 3, the donkeys of Kish, Saul's father, were lost. So Kish tells Saul, take one of the young men with you, arise and go look for the donkeys. Okay, so Saul gets a command. He gets a mission. Go look for the donkeys. Go find them. Go get them. So Saul and this guy that he chose to go with him, they pass through the hill country. They passed through another land. They never found him. And they passed through Benjamin. They didn't find him there either. So then Saul says to his servant, come on, let's go back so that my father doesn't start to worry about us, basically. Lest he stop caring about the donkeys and he starts to worry about us. Right there, that seems so considerate, so thoughtful, so honoring of his dad. We better go back because my dad's going to start worrying about us. I don't want him to worry. He's so concerned about how the other people are feeling. But in the meantime, he's actually willing to abandon the mission that his dad sent him on. So because of the concern for somebody else's feelings, he's sacrificing what he's been called to do right now. All right, so then it's his servant. It's his servant who actually sticks with the mission and says, well, wait, not yet. Hold on a second. There's actually a man of God in this city, and he's referring to Samuel. And he basically says, let's go talk to him because maybe he can help us. Maybe he'll show us where to go. So the servant actually sticks with the mission when Saul's willing to abandon it. And it doesn't look evil. It doesn't look overly wrong. It looks honoring. So that's why this is so sneaky. So that is the first sign of Saul, like, again, looking like a man of character, but that there's something off there. Because now think about David. David also was given a mission to protect the sheep. And instead of, worrying about whether his dad was going to be worried for his safety or what if something happens to me and then my family's all sad, he goes and he takes down a lion and a bear with his bare hands. He's going to do his mission at all costs. No matter what the fallout is. See, a man of character is not anchored in what other people are going to feel. A man of character is anchored in something way more immovable than that. And as men of the kingdom, we're anchored in the mission that God's put us here for. Okay, so we have that little snippet of him. Then, if we fast forward to chapter 10. So I'm going to fast forward on the computer here to chapter 10 as well. And this is when Samuel is going to anoint Saul in front of the people of Israel, all right? And way down here, so it's funny because Samuel actually like proclaimed Saul king once already, kind of in private though, not in front of everybody, not in front of a whole assembly. And he basically already anointed him king. And now, a little bit later, I don't know how long, they call an assembly of all the people of Israel together, and by drawing lots, Saul is taken out of the group. And in that day, God spoke to the people a lot of times by casting lots and saying, basically, whoever draws the shortest straw is X, Y, and Z. So they start drawing straws, basically, and narrowing down whoever, for example, whoever got the shortest straw, the king would come out of that tribe. Okay, now out of that tribe, let's draw lots again. And whoever gets the shortest straw, the king's going to come out of that family. And now in that family, let's draw straws again. Whoever gets the shortest, happened to be Saul, which is crazy. So God already had chosen Saul. And then, of course, by this seemingly by chance, they cast lots and it lands to him. But in verse 20, it says the tribe of Benjamin is taken by lot. He brought the tribe of Benjamin near by its clans, and then this clan was taken by Lot again, and then within that clan, Saul was taken. But when they looked for him, when they wanted to find him, he couldn't be found anywhere. So they inquired of the Lord and said, is there still a man to come? And the Lord said, listen, he's hidden himself among the baggage. Whatever that means, I don't know. Maybe there's baggage because everybody had traveled to this one place, to this assembly. But Saul had hidden himself. To me, that doesn't look like a man that we would think of as evil. It doesn't look like a man that we would think of as arrogant. It doesn't look like a man that we would think of as dangerous. He hid himself. God had already anointed him king before this time. He was now, though, not living according to that anointing. He wasn't living according to that identity. He was embarrassed. He thought low of himself. He was ashamed. Maybe he didn't think he could handle it, and he was afraid. So the people ran and took him from there. And it's so funny because it makes the point of saying he was taller than any of the people from his shoulders upward. And Samuel even said, look, there's nobody like him among all the people. So he had this physical stature, but his inner stature doesn't seem to be matching. Okay, so then we fast forward again to chapter 13. I'm just going to type in 13. That'll go faster. Okay. So now this is the part that I've never understood. I've been like, God, there have been kings in the Bible that have done way worse things. Why are you basically punishing Saul for this thing that he's doing right here? It doesn't make sense. Why does this make him evil and wicked as a king? So basically, they were at war. They were being threatened by the Philistines. Okay, and it says that the Philistines mustered to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots, 6,000 horsemen and troops. They came up and they encamped at this place. And when the men of Israel saw that they were in trouble, the people hid themselves. So God's people hid themselves in caves and in holes and in rocks and in tombs and in cisterns. They were afraid. They were living weak. And some Hebrews even bounced up out of there, crossed the Jordan to a different land.
Saul was still at Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. So the people were freaked. And I got to think that Saul was picking up on the panic, because apparently beforehand, and there is a point before that I skipped over where Samuel talks to Saul saying, hey, wait 7 days and for me to come. All right. And before offering sacrifice or whatever. So, and now we skip to this point in time. Verse 8, it says that Saul waited 7 days, the time appointed by Samuel. But Samuel didn't come, and the people were scattering. So Saul said, bring the burnt offering here to me and the peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering without Samuel. As soon as he finished, Samuel got there. And Saul went out to meet him and greet him. It doesn't even seem like Saul is like trying to hide anything. Almost like he thinks, oh yeah, this is fine. Oh great, Samuel's here. Let me go say hi. Let's say what's up. And Samuel's like, what have you done? And Saul said, well, when I saw that people scattering from me and that you didn't come and that the Philistines were all like ready to fight, I said, now they're going to come down against me and I haven't sought the favor of the Lord. So I forced myself and I offered the burnt offering. This doesn't look bad. Saul's not out fighting saying, man, I'm going to take them on all by myself because I can do it in my own strength. I don't need you, God. He's saying, I hadn't yet sought God's favor, so I wanted to make sure to do that. That doesn't look bad at all. And Samuel says to him in verse 13, you've done foolishly. You haven't kept the command of the Lord, which he commanded you. Because if you had, he would have established your kingdom forever, but now it's not going to continue. And the Lord is seeking out a man after his own heart, and he's already found him, basically. So even though it looked holy, Saul was not operating after God's heart. He was being moved and swayed by the circumstance around him. He was being moved by what the people thought, and the people were hiding. They were scared, and Saul looked at his situation and he said, oh my gosh, we're getting threatened. The people are panicking. Samuel hasn't arrived. I better go ahead and do this because I need God's favor. See, that he was just reacting in a way that seemed really nice guy, seemed like all the right things. But it wasn't sticking true to what the word of the Lord had said, which is wait until Samuel gets there. So he wasn't, again, even though he had physical stature, his inner stature wasn't strong enough. And it's so sneaky because it doesn't look that bad. But it's bad enough to cost him his kingship. It's bad enough to cost him the kingdom. And this is the first moment where we see God reject him as king. And you might say, if you were in this situation, you might say, but God, I was doing all the right things. But God, I was seeking your favor. But God, I was being the nice guy. I thought I was doing what you wanted. And God's like, no, you weren't. You weren't staying true. You weren't staying unwavering. You weren't being a man of conviction, and my king must be a man of conviction. So, then we see chapter 14. Now, this whole situation of the Philistines being here and keeping the people in fear, this was going on. And it actually says that all of the weapons of Israel were taken away, that Saul and Jonathan, his son, were the only ones who had weapons. And the rest of the people, they couldn't even they could hardly even use their farming tools as weapons. So they're still freaking out. Jonathan, Saul's son, decides to do something about it. He and just one other guy go and take out the Philistines. God meets him in that, and he does a miracle and starts killing all the Philistines basically. And then Saul reacts. He's not out leading his people. He's waiting to see what's comfortable. And he sees in the distance all the commotion and the turmoil. And then he gets the people to go join. But he's not out operating in faith, taking the lead, taking initiative, being proactive. He's waiting until it looks welcoming. It took his son to stand up with more balls than he had. So then we see in chapter 15, in verse 10, I know I'm skipping over a ton here, but I'm just wanting you guys to see this. So it says, the word of the Lord came to Samuel, and he says to Samuel, I regret that I've made Saul king, because he's turned his back from following me, and he's not performed my commandments. Again, you're like, dang, this is extreme, God. But this is how deadly that way of life is. It is toxic, and it is a death sentence, especially if we're in a position of leadership. And say hello to husbandhood or to fatherhood. And I would argue, now this looks different and there's different levels of leadership for every person, but I would argue that as a man in God's kingdom, we are all called to be a leader of something or someone. And Saul is this really obvious example that if you are going to be a king, which we all are, we are a royal priesthood. Jesus is the king over kings. If you are called to be a king, then this way of life, it has no place. So he says, I regret that I've made him king. He's turned his back from following me. And Samuel was angry, and he cried to the Lord all night. And he rose to meet Saul in the morning. And it was told Samuel, Saul came to Carmel, and behold, he set up a monument for himself and turned and passed on and went down to Gilgal. So let me give you some backstory here, because we skipped over a thing. There was a battle. God commanded Saul, hey, you're going to fight this battle, and you're going to take nobody alive. You will kill all people, men, women, children, animals, everything. I want you to take nothing. And turns out Saul kept the king of that people alive, and he kept alive some of the animals. So this is why God is now saying again, I regret that I've made Saul king. But look at what is happening here. So it was told to Samuel, Saul came to Carmel, and he set up a monument for himself, and he passed and went down to Gilgal. So Samuel came and found Saul, apparently at Gilgal, and said to him, and Saul then said to Samuel, Samuel, blessed be you to the Lord. I performed the commandment of the Lord. He again doesn't look like he's hiding things. It seems to me like he actually is believing this. And when we live this way, when we're so concerned about what people are thinking, when we're so concerned about being just approved by everybody, we start to kind of white lie to ourselves. And we speak out little white lies like, oh, I didn't know, when actually I did. Oh, I actually Yeah, this is great. I like this food when you actually don't, but you're too afraid to offend the person who made it for you. So he says, yeah, I performed the commandment of the Lord. And Samuel's like, well, what the heck? Why is it that I hear sheep and oxen? The commandment of the Lord was to kill everything. And Saul says, well, they brought them from the Amalekites because the people spared the best of the sheep and the best of the oxen in order to sacrifice to the Lord. And the rest we killed. So God said, get rid of everything. Saul is like, well, yeah, we're going to do that, but we'll go ahead and keep some so we can make sacrifices. Again, it all looks good. But Samuel said to Saul, stop. I'm going to tell you what God has said this night. He's like, stop it, Saul. Stop. This is bad. This is wrong. You're deceiving yourself. You think you're right, but you're not. And then look, he just comes out and says it. We want to figure out what the root of Saul's problem is. Samuel says it right here. This is the crux of it. You are little in your own eyes. Though you are little in your own eyes, isn't the actual truth about you that you are the head of the tribes of Israel? Listen, Saul, God anointed you king over Israel, and he sent you on a mission. So why didn't you obey his voice? That's the problem. Saul thought so little of himself that he was just going by whatever came up in the moment. And there's a point in this story that I just skipped over. I don't remember exactly where the verse is, but Saul actually says that the people wanted, to save some. So he's even like listening to kind of what they're leading. But Samuel's like, dude, you're a king. And the word for us in this, gentleman, is to stand up and live knowing we have the authority. We have the position to have a thought, to have a conviction, to look at a situation and say, you know what? No, this is not what the Lord is saying. This is not according to his heart. And to stand our ground, to stay our course, regardless of the circumstance. We got to stop being nice and trying to keep everybody happy. We got to stop being nice and trying to always keep God happy. Because God says, I'm sorry. And he says it at some point. Yeah, it's later on here. He says, has the Lord as great delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices? Does he delight in that more than he delights in obeying? Stop trying to make me happy with everything and just do what I've said. Just hear my voice and go with it. And it's so funny because when Samuel asked, why did you not obey the voice of the Lord? Saul says to him, I have obeyed. I went on mission. I went on the mission that he sent me on. And I've devoted the Amalekites to destruction, but I brought their king back. Oh, and this is where he says, but the people took of the spoil, sheep and oxen, the best of the things devoted. He still thinks that he did it. But he didn't. And we might think that we are living holy. We might think that we are pleasing God. But if we are not showing up to our daily life in all of our authenticity, if we are not showing up in all of our strength, being willing to engage in conflict, if Saul had listened to God's command, then all way back when all the people were panicking and scattering, they might have been like, dude, Saul, what are you doing? We need you to save us. And you're just waiting around. He needed to be willing to endure the scorn and the criticism. He needed to be willing to fight with some people and say, you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. I'm obeying what God said right here. In my life, guys, I decided on 2 occasions to run a GoFundMe campaign because my health was plummeting and I could not work and I needed to get treatment. And I have to tell you, I wrestled with this thing for a long time because I was afraid of doing that because I was embarrassed about it, because also I'm not into asking people to just give me money for free. I was afraid of what people would think of me. I was afraid of all that. And I tell you this now, not even knowing for sure, like, was this God speaking to me or not? I feel like it was. But man, I faced a lot of flack. But at the time, I was praying about this thing, and I felt like I was saying, Matt, I want you to do this. I want you to run this GoFundMe campaign. And I felt like he was giving me strategies for using it as a platform to also like encourage and minister to people in the process. So I was going about it really wanting to give back to the people who were joining with us in that. Nonetheless, I got some heavy fire for it from people close, from like our own families. My wife got people in her family attacking her because of what I had decided to do to take care of my family. My actions brought on pain and hardship and attack to my wife. That is not what I wanted. That was not my intention. If I could, I would have changed that completely. But I was following what I believed was the voice of the Lord in that season for us. I got flack from family members telling me, you're irresponsible. You don't know what you're doing. This is offensive. Why don't you just come to us personally and ask us to help you? And looking back, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, this was absolutely what God wanted me to do and everybody else is wrong. Maybe I was hearing wrong. Maybe I was hearing right. I tend to think I was. But regardless, there was a path that I believed God was leading me on, and I was willing to take whatever comes because I needed to walk true to what I was hearing from the Lord. And if I was wrong, I was going to let him correct me. But I was willing to take the fallout, and it caused a lot of trauma. And we need to be men who are willing to fail. We need to be men who are willing to screw up, who aren't too timid to just to just choose a course and go with it. Because if we're here tonight, we're not men who are like not caring to seek the Lord. If we were a bunch of men who didn't care to seek the Lord, I wouldn't say the same things. But because we're after him, because we want to know him and be known by him, because the Spirit is working inside of us, then we need to be willing to take a step of risk and trust that God in us is doing something. So we choose a path and we think, okay, I think I'm hearing him. I'm going for it. And Saul did not live that way. And so when it comes time for David to enter the scene, now Saul gets like, also the Bible talks about an evil spirit, or it says actually a harmful spirit from God. Go figure on the theology there. But a harmful spirit from God started tormenting him. But it also talks about how Saul was like, when the people started singing, David has killed his 10,000s and Saul has killed his thousands. Saul's like jealous. He's like, why are the people saying that? And I got to think, guys, that he had lived his life always trying to do what he thought was the right thing in the moment, what he thought people wanted, what he thought would lead to the least amount of, resistance. And so when it comes time for his expectations to not be met and the people to not appreciate him anymore and start to go for David over him, he's like, what the heck? What gives? I've been doing all this and I still am not, I'm getting no benefit, no reward. And I know for a fact, because of how this goes with guys that I've interacted with in marriage and stuff, I know for a fact that we start to feel like, what the heck? I'm doing all the right things and I'm still not making headway in my marriage. My wife still doesn't appreciate me. Meanwhile, we haven't been manning up like David did. And you know what? After Samuel gives that final rebuke, Saul's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I've sinned. I've transgressed everything. And he says, I feared the voice of the people and I obeyed them, not the words of the Lord. Okay, so he's confessing. He's finally realizing it. And then he says, now to Samuel, now please pardon my sin and come back with me so that I can bow before the Lord. Even now, even in exposing his sin, he's not just going after God for himself. He's like, I need you, Samuel, to hold my hand. I need you to make me feel better. I need you to affirm me and let me know it's all going to be okay so that I can go bow before the Lord. The difference between him and David is that when David blew it, David was like, screw everybody else. I need to be with God. I need to make it right with God. Doesn't matter what Nathan the prophet thinks of me. I need to go be right with God. And I'm repenting because he and I are what matter. And I violated that. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. See, David was honored by God because even though he screwed up on multiple occasions, he returned to the place of conviction. He returned to the place of operating in his identity, out of his relationship with the Lord, out of hearing God's voice. Meanwhile, Saul was still in a place of needing affirmation from the people around him. So what I want for us, fellas, is that we be like David. Now, I'm not saying that then we get to go and, cheat on our wife with somebody else's wife and all that jazz and then kill the husband like he did. What I'm saying is that he went after God. And he said, screw what everybody else thinks. He even said that to his own wife when he was dancing around in the streets naked. And she's like, what the heck are you doing? You're making a fool of yourself. He's like, yeah, you know what? And I'll do it even more. He was not swayed. And when the people were all cowering around, including Saul, because they were so afraid of Goliath, David shows up and he's like, what are you guys doing? Doesn't anybody hear this giant over there? Are you not going to take him out? Because I will, because God is with me and I'm not going to stand for that. This is who we can be. And if we go back all the way back to that, the crux of the matter, where it says Saul was little in his own eyes, we need to get out of that. And we need to realize, oh, people might have a problem with me, but it may not be because I'm just an utter screw up. And it may be that my opinion, it may be that my insight, it may be that the thing that I have to offer in this situation is actually good, even if it's not going to get received. And when we live in that place, life starts to look a lot different. We start to show up in our everyday life instead of feeling like I'm never really speaking my mind, and instead of feeling like, I don't know if anybody can relate, but it used to be my default where sometimes I would be in social situations and I'm not a shy person necessarily. I'm not like, I would never be at a gathering of any kind and like be too afraid to talk to people. I was always out talking and everybody liking me a ton, but I would always leave these social places feeling like I never actually fully truly engaged. I always felt like there was this invisible veil between me and the people around me, and I was just removed. And I didn't ever know why until I realized it's because I wasn't truly showing up. I was only relating in a way that was just always taking the temperature of everything around me and just being liked instead of being me. And once I started to be me, then that veil feeling went away. And I could leave a situation feeling like, man, that felt good. I was just myself. And I might have offended a person or two. I might have, you know, talked too much, but I was myself. And in marriage, it's been like the difference between walking around slowly building my bitterness because I'm too afraid to speak authentically about what I think or what I might be needing in a certain moment. And I'm just hoping that if I behave a certain way, if I behave well, like Saul, that it's all going to come back correctly towards me, that my wife is going to realize it and she's going to, you know, reward me in one way or the other. But meanwhile, when that doesn't pan out, I start getting bitter and bitter and bitter. And then anger and all that stuff. And then my emotions boil over and I can't control them because they've just been festering for so long. Or it means, you know, maybe my wife isn't going to like what I have to say right now, but I need to say it. And it might lead to a conflict or a fight, but we'll get through it. And she might disagree with me on something, but I still feel very strongly about it. And I don't know how to exactly, you know, navigate if she's against it and I'm for it. I'm not sure how to do that. All I know is I got to just be real. And yeah, there might be emotion in the moment. There might be like conflict in the moment, but we can work through it because we're both showing up. And that's just not possible when you live like Saul. See, David showed up. He said, yeah, I'm making you uncomfortable by dancing around naked. I'm going to do it anyway. And he was basically saying, this is me. You can either take it or leave it. Now, that can go overboard. We can become jerks and all that. I'm not advocating that. But there is a level of, this is me. And you are free to choose whether you are going to love me and stay with me or if you will not. But I'm not going to become a chameleon just to keep you around. Because what happens is things fall to pieces anyway that way. It's a false hope. So what I want to do right now is take some time to just ask the Lord what if there's anything that he's wanting to say right now, if there's anybody that he just wants us to be praying for. And for the people watching on Facebook, I am seeing that you are putting comments in, but for whatever reason, my window is not displaying the comments. So I can't actually see what they are, but I might try to remedy that here in a second. So just wanted to apologize if anybody's been commenting and I have not replied or mentioned anything that was timely in the moment. That's why. I've never seen that before, but we'll see if I can pull it up in a different browser possibly. But yeah, I want us to just take a moment to just ask the Lord what he's doing, what he wants to do right now. So Jesus, Jesus, I thank you for freedom, Lord. I thank you for freedom from this enemy that's kind of real, even hard to really put a label on, but that's especially hard to notice when we're in it, when we're living this way. But God, I thank you that you are freeing the men here from this way of life. I thank you that you are freeing them to live into, you're freeing us to live into authentic living. You're freeing us to live into bold living. You're freeing us to live into unapologetic living. And God, we might screw up. It's not a guarantee that we're not going to screw up. But I thank you, God, that you are there to catch us if and when we do. And you would rather have us making a mess than never getting in the game.
This is Matt Hallock signing off and thanking you again for being a part of the Man Warrior King community. If you want more, head over to manwarriorking.com. And please remember to take just a couple seconds to subscribe on iTunes and to leave a 5-star rating and a review so that more and more men can join us as we become awesome. You are a kingdom man. Go out, take more ground, push back darkness. Remember, you bring value into your home, your work, and your circle. You are not a taker, you are a giver. Abundance is your atmosphere.